welcome to another episode of Earning the Hate. Hey, gun people. Well, still keeping up on some of this Uvalde shooting. This is another cell phone where a dad got there almost immediately and was filming cops with long guns. So this theory that the cops had to wait for more power and they were outgunned is another lie. I mean, the lies just keep stacking up on this complete government failure. They got 19 kids dead, and I can't believe there's more outrage. There's more outrage to get a freaking 30-round magazine than there is to address the incompetence and failure of government to save these freaking kids. Out-freaking-rageous.
And this morning, new cell phone video shared with KENS 5 shows the response at Robb Elementary. Law enforcement with long guns.
Long guns. Remember, we were told they were outgunned. They couldn't go because he had the mean AR and they didn't. It's all lies.
The response at Robb Elementary. Law enforcement with long guns rushing by a parent.
That parent is the father of a third grader who was inside, and he says he got to the scene around 11:50 that Tuesday morning and started recording. Meanwhile, State Senator Roland Gutierrez revealing new information about the 911 calls coming in. Those calls even coming from children in.
Okay, so this is the chief that made the call to stand down the coward. This guy has 4 officers that work for him, and he puts 4 stars on his uniform. Now, in California, they stopped this because all these little police chiefs were putting stars, and they made it universal that, hey, you can only have 1 star. You got to have at least like 200 officers to have 2 stars. You got to have at least 500 officers to have 3 stars. You got to have at least 500 officers because all these small town wannabe heroes were putting stars all over their uniform. So Texas obviously hasn't adopted that because this idiot with 4 officers gets a star for each officer to show how important he is. That way, when he wears his uniform around, he appears important and in charge, and it shows and it builds his ego. Kind of like when he was on scene here. He went through active shooter training twice in the last 2 years and totally ignored everything that was trained. And now he's blaming the radio system that he didn't have a radio. He's the on-scene commander and he doesn't have a radio. That's why he says he didn't know about the 911 calls. It's bullshit. He had 19 officers. If he only has 4, where were those 19 officers? Did all of them not have radios? Was the sheriff's department there? Was the police department? Was the border patrol? Are you telling me out of 19 officers, not one skinhead had 1 damn radio and nobody was communicating? I don't believe that. And if you believe it, well, that makes you an idiot.
Side Robb Elementary pleading for help.
Gutierrez says the officer in charge, School Police Chief Pete Arredondo, did not have a direct line to 911 dispatchers.
What do you mean he didn't have direct line? He had 19 officers there, and they're only saying 19 in the hallway. That doesn't count the 19 that were outside harassing and arresting parents, pepper spraying them, handcuffing them, holding a mom back from getting... That doesn't count all those officers. They had 19 officers in the hallway. You're telling me not one of them had a radio? This is outrageous, and I keep doing these videos just to keep a log. I've got a playlist because, you know, as time goes on, people will forget all this, and they won't remember this, and then they'll be able to paint this narrative that, you know, it was a communication problem, and everybody did the best they could, and law enforcement was trying, and it'll turn into this big law enforcement great love fest, donut fest, and it's all bullshit. This is the absolute largest failure of law enforcement that I can remember in my lifetime.
The time.
What we do know is that the 911 calls were not being communicated to the so-called incident commander, Officer Arredondo.
We do not know that. We know he is saying that. You can't tell me out of 19 officers, not one of them said, hey, I'm getting reports that there's 911 calls, the kid's inside. And even if he didn't know, and he didn't have knowledge, your active shooter training says you go kill the killer or he will continue to kill, period. No ifs, ands, buts, and coconuts. You don't get to say, oh, he shut a door behind him. Now we have a barricaded suspect. We're not going to go in. It's bullshit. I just can't believe they're allowing this guy to have this pass. And look, government doesn't like to admit when they fail at every corner. It's very, very hard to get government to admit it. And then when even they admit it, they'll spin it to where they were doing a good job and it was the equipment's fault. And if they only had more money, more people, and more training, it wouldn't have happened. That will always be the outcome of the investigation.
They were being communicated to a Uvalde police officer.
It is still unclear.
And what was that guy doing? I mean, this whole, every newscast I see cops running. Where the hell are they running? Are they running from the shooter? Are they running? Where the hell are all these cops running? Because you had 19 officers standing out in the hallway for an hour with long guns, and they were waiting for backup. Are you kidding me?
Clear whether Uvalde police were passing along that information from those calls, but just months ago we learned school police took an active shooter training class. It offers officers clear workarounds for communication problems, including opening a direct line of communication to 911 dispatchers on their cell phone.
Okay, so what they're saying there, and I mean, I was doing that shit back when I had a cell phone and was working that case. I told you my phone bill was $5,000. Before people used to have unlimited, they used to charge you by the minute. And my bill was $5,000 one month because we went to this one area and our radios wouldn't work. We were down in the middle of freaking LA and Shooting Newton district and we didn't have freaking radios. And Shooting Newton Police Department didn't want to back us up. They said, until you get in the shooting, then call us. Otherwise, we're not going over there. Go handle your warrant. So we literally called dispatch, our dispatcher, because we knew, said, here's where we're at, and we're leaving a line open. And then the other officers we called and left the line open so we could talk. So we had partners with line phones open. And I mean, the agency was pissed off that our phone bill was $5,000. So this isn't a new concept to open up a line of communication. Now we have to train cops to do it and they still can't do it. I mean, how does an incident commander with 4 stars say, I didn't know what was happening with dispatch. I didn't have any information. What the hell were you doing for an hour? Discussing where you were going to go have lunch? It's just absolutely ridiculous, the bullshit lies we're getting out of this. And it's pretty ridiculous that there's actually cops out there still defending this shit, saying it wasn't the cops' fault and government did a good job. Out freaking rageous.
UCISD PD Chief Pete Arredondo, in charge last Tuesday, has taken this course at least twice in the last 2 years.
So he took the course, and I just did a video that gave the police the complete course breakdown. I put a link. You can go review it. It's the video I did before this. I'll put a link to the video at the end of this video. But I'm telling you, he went through the training twice, and I've got the lesson plan on what he was taught and what he's being taught statewide in Texas. And he ignored the training. 19 kids died, and now he's blaming it on a communication problem. No accountability from law enforcement. They don't accept it, and government doesn't make them accept it. It's just bullshit. And there's 19 kids and a whole bunch of people that lost a whole bunch that day. And government's running around saying, if we just had more money for radio. Meanwhile, you got freaking Abbott, his dumb ass, saying, I want all officers to have bulletproof shields. Who cares if they got shields if they're pussies and they don't have the balls to go in and use them? They had shields. They had long guns. They didn't use them. They wanted to wait for backup. They wanted to wait for the SWAT team because 19 armed officers against one guy killing kids, the odds are just too great for the officers to go in there and risk officer safety. Out freaking rageous.
Still has not explained what he knew or what he did. Gutierrez says this is all part of a larger problem in rural Texas because there is not a uniform system of communications.
So now he's trying to get the government. It's not his fault that he's incompetent. It's not his fault he ignored his training. It's not his fault that 19 kids got killed. It's because of a rural place we didn't get enough money to buy more radios. See, more money, more training, and more people will always fix government failures. No matter what you give them, government always fails because they're incompetent. They hire incompetence. They promote incompetence. They retain incompetence, all in the name of PC and hiring people because of what color they are, what bathroom they use, and they've thrown away any type of standard or accountability to hold people accountable. All right? Earning the hate.
Who gave us that cell phone video that we just saw from the day of the shooting, told us, regardless of communication issues, there were plenty of officers there at the time who should have known children were inside, and he wants someone to be held accountable.
This guy has more sense than the cops defending these cops. There were so many damn cops that there's no excuse for not going in. I don't care if you had no communication. I don't even care if you only had one round in your pistol and the guy had a rifle. There's no reason 19 cops can't go in and take out a suspect. They went in afterwards. I mean, they went in after backup came up. When cops showed up with balls enough to go in, freaking cowards. I said it then, I'll say it now. We'll end that there.